After the Raptors' dominant win against the San Antonio Spurs last night, OG was feeling good, and he came out and said that he feels like he's the best defender in the NBA, and his goal this season is to win Defensive Player of the Year. So we'll break down that quote in this video, as well as Greg Popovich speaking out on the Toronto Raptors, the Raptors making history, and a whole bunch of other stuff we have to discuss in this video. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And folks, our next goal is 27,000 subscribers. I know we're a bit ways away, but you guys have been killing it, hitting that sub button. The Raptors have been winning. I think it's in correlation with the number of subs we've been getting on the channel. So if you want to wish the Raptors some good luck and just make me feel real happy, you know, in this, Thursday night, definitely hit that sub button. It means the world to us. But let's dive into the news. And the first thing we're discussing is OG Anunoby wanting to be the Defensive Player of the Year this season. Now, I've discussed for years on this podcast, this OG Anunoby jersey, I got that a month into his NBA career because everything else about OG Anunoby's game, it can come, it can go. The offense is inconsistent at times. The handling, I've gassed up at times on this channel, but the defense has remained elite from day one with the Toronto Raptors. And I've been saying it. I think OG Anunoby has been overlooked and underrated as an on-ball defender across the NBA. The fact that he wasn't even consideration for an all-NBA defensive team last season was ridiculous to me. I get there was injuries and all that sort of stuff, but a guy like Matisse Thybulle probably played an aggregate of less minutes than OG Anunoby, even if it was more games. Definitely shouldn't be getting there over OG. I know Thybulle's a good defender and all that sort of stuff, but OG Anunoby with his size, his frame, his strength, his quickness, his just ability to read passing lanes has always been elite for the Toronto Raptors. Now, it's only gotten better this season. It's gotten remarkable. We'll dive into the numbers after, but he's essentially breaking it down and gassed himself up in a quote as well, saying that I've always wanted to be the Defensive Player of the Year. I've always thought that I was the best defender in the league, and I've felt that for the last, I don't know how many years. And as I just said, as I just ranted about, this is something that I concur with OG Anunoby. If he can stay healthy, like there is absolutely no reason why this guy shouldn't be the DPOY for this season. Because looking at the stats, he's first in the NBA in steals. Pickpocketed 2.9 steals per game. Basically, 3 steals a night is absolutely ridiculous. I know it's a small sample size, but OG Anunoby is being a menace out there on the defensive end, just taking the ball away from these NBA players, these grown NBA players, just like they're little children out there. He's also getting a block a game, you know, those counting stats. For a wing, that's very impressive, having a full block per game, but he's 7th in the NBA in deflections, you know, deflecting those basketballs that don't turn into steals at 3.9 a night, and he's top 15 in loose balls recovered, so not only is he protecting the paint, not only is he pickpocketing people, he's also hustling for those loose balls, hustling for those deflections, and it's reflecting the advanced stats as well. His defensive box plus minus is at a 2.7 already on a Raptors team, which is, just elite defensively. It's not like we got scrubs coming in to back up OG Anunoby's defense. His box plus minus is that high. It's just dumb. And already getting 0.6 defensive win shares this season. So those numbers are lucratively high for OG Anunoby. The advanced stats, the basic counting stats back it all up. And if you just watch this guy play, people are afraid. It's the same way people just didn't want to, when Kawhi Leonard was with the San Antonio Spurs, OG Anunoby be matched up on someone and they just pass the ball away. It doesn't even matter if they're an elite player. I mean, Trae Young, who's one of the best ball handlers, one of the best guards in the NBA, had 10 turnovers with OG Anunoby being the focal point, you know, switch on him. Obviously, Gary, different guys on the team got their switches onto Trae Young, but OG Anunoby got a lot of those steals, you know, pickpocketing and getting in those passing lanes, right? He's coming out last night just, you know, wherever that ball was, if that ball wasn't completely zinged in the right place, OG Anunoby was getting in the way of that. He was tipping that ball loose. If you're loose with the handle, he just has like a magnet on his hands and the ball comes to him. So it's, you know, he does everything out there on the defensive end. His size, he can guard 5s, he can guard 1s. It's just something to marvel at. And OG Anunoby, as I keep repeating, if he can stay healthy, play more than 40 games, if he can get to 60 games this season, and he's not at least in the race, in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, there's going to be some frustration vented out on this podcast to the NBA vote getters, whoever out there makes those decisions. So shout out to OG Anunoby. I love the confidence, and I think he should feel like he's the best defender in the NBA, just given everything that I mentioned. But, that's not the only person that had interesting post-game comments last night. And the next guy is Greg Popovich, head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, spoke out on the Toronto Raptors last evening. Now, Greg Popovich is one of the greatest NBA coaches of all time, and historically, he's given the Toronto Raptors some serious praise. I mean, if you go back to, I believe it was the 2019 season when the Raptors had Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, we had the bench mob, which seems to be returning now this season. I believe it was speculated on. I think there was one of those mic'd up things where they were saying, don't be surprised, he said to Dwayne Casey, if we see this team in the NBA Finals. Now, obviously, that was, the end of a LeBronto era, which we were still in the middle of, so we didn't make the finals that season. But Popovich has always had respect for the Raptors organization, and he had some very nice comments about this team following last night's game. Came out and said that they've got a great attitude about how you play hard every minute. And their coach has done a great job at making them a team you have to worry about on both ends of the floor because they cause so many turnovers. Obviously speaking on Nick Nurse right there. And on offense, they're a team that's so hard to guard because of their speed and athleticism. It's really a fine team. Now, he brings up a lot of interesting points in that quote in those comments. And the first thing I just want to point to is something that I think gets overlooked. Someone made this comment on Reddit or Twitter, I believe. I spotted it and really made me think. But I wish I honestly probably should have got the person's username. I apologize for that if you're watching this vid. But basically broke down how one of Nick Nurse's best assets as a coach is just getting the entire team to buy in. And that is something, especially you look at teams like the Brooklyn Nets right now, you look at the Lakers, you're looking at whoever across the NBA, and you can see it's tough to get really good teams to just play hard night in, night out. And it's something the Raptors, whether good or bad, whether tanking or not, looking back to the Tampa tank season, there's never really a game where you can say, oh, the Raptors just didn't play hard that night, right? There's games where you can definitely say, oh, they didn't have it, their steps slow, they're sluggish and stuff, but there's always an amount of effort. They're always trying to make a comeback. They're never laying over and dying against a team. And that's something that Nick Nurse, the players, the core group, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG, the leaders of this team, all deserve a bunch of credit for. Because I know everyone brings up Heat culture, but Raptors culture is a legitimate thing there as well. And it's a huge reason we've maintained at the top of the Eastern Conference standings for so long. And honestly, credit goes to DeMar DeRozan, Dwayne Casey, and all those guys too, because that's something that the Raptors have been doing for a very long time. Even when we weren't the greatest of defensive teams, playing hard has never been an issue for this Raptors squad. So that's a nice comment there by Greg Popovich. But one of the other comments that he made is how the Raptors play so fast. They have that speed and athleticism, and it's something I discussed in the post-game podcast last night. It was really the motivating factor for me adding this quote in here, but the Raptors looked really fast, even more so last night against the San Antonio Spurs, and that's definitely without Fred VanVleet, who tends to slow the game down a little bit, and I think we should be leaning in to playing faster, having more fast break buckets. It's something that really plays to the Raptors' strengths in terms of youth, in terms of long boy lineups, in terms of the athleticism we have on the squad, right? It's foolish not to just get the rebound, outlet, and go up the court as quick as possible. Obviously, you don't need to rush anything. If the shot's not there, you can set it back and then let Fred VanVleet dictate the half-court offense. But if you have the opportunities to run, we should be playing that brand of basketball night in, night out. Let me know in the comment section if you disagree with that take. But staying on that Spurs game, the Raptors made some history with that massive win. Now, I just gave some credit to Greg Popovich because he's, with some unfortunate circumstances, whether it be due to injury, whether it be due to Kawhi Leonard wanting his way out and coming to our team and end up winning an NBA championship. He's been dealt a tough deck of cards, a tough deck of players in recent years. Now they're dealing with, their lottery pick, Josh Primo, who they just waived. But Greg Popovich, has cemented a very nice legacy. There's a Spurs culture there as well, and rarely do they get blown out. But tonight, they did some alien hunting, it felt like, and definitely a large chunk due to the Raptors defense. But the Spurs lost 143-100 against the Raptors is the team's worst in the Greg Popovich coaching era. Now, that's something wild. That's a pretty wild thing to have on the Toronto Raptors resume, because Greg Popovich has been coaching that Spurs team for a very, very long time. The fact that they've never been blown out by that much is a testament to the Spurs and a testament to how good this Raptors team is this season. And, the Spurs have been good. I know they dealt with some injuries this year, or that game, Keldon Johnson was out and whatnot, but, they're a 5-3 squad. They definitely didn't roll over and die last night. The Raptors just kept the gas on. I guess maybe in the fourth quarter, end of the third, things started going a little bit messy for the Spurs, but the Raptors are just a solid squad. So that was a very nice win for the Raptors to come out with and get the W. But the next thing we're discussing, the next topic we're talking about is OG Anunoby talks the value of Christian Koloko's rim protection. And there's been a common theme of defense in this podcast, but Christian Koloko, man, him in the starting unit shows that having one of those rim protecting centers, and it's a style of center the Raptors really haven't had traditionally. The traditional rim protecting center. We've had Jakob Poeltl at times who are more mobile and long. He looked really good for the San Antonio Spurs last night. We've had Marc Gasol, who's an elite rim protector in the sense that his IQ was great. He had a lot of weight thrown around, but he wasn't jumping out of the air to block a bunch of shots. He was just contesting and stuff. Serge Ibaka was naturally a power forward most of his tenure with the Raptors, but when he played center, was a bit of a rim protector, but we caught him at the tail end, not at the peak of his shot blocking powers, but early in Masai Ujiri's stint with the Toronto Raptors he's been with the team for, a decade now, but early in his tenure with as GM and president of basketball operations for the Raptors, there's rumors that we wanted guys like Tyson Chandler, those long, wiry, athletic shot-blocking centers. And it feels like every other week we're in the rumors for Miles Turner, Nerlens Noel. Who are the other shot-blocking rim protectors I can think of off the top of my head that we've been rumored for in recent seasons? But it's a style player Masai Ujiri clearly really likes, and we never really pulled the trigger on. And in this year's draft, we're seeing what a Christian Koloko-esque player can do for this Raptor squad. And OG Anunoby essentially echoed those sentiments last night, saying how big it is to have someone that can clean up all your messes. It gives you that confidence to be more aggressive, for him to go out and get more steals, because on the backside of the defense, if someone blows by me, I'm not necessarily giving up 2 points, because Koloko's out there to send a shot away. I know he only had one block last night, but I'm still skeptical about that. I felt like he had a bunch of block shots in that one that the stat keepers missed, but he is, whether he's blocking it, he's changing every single shot that goes up there. So Koloko, man, as first year, 22, 21 years old. I don't have his age memorized just yet, but the potential of this guy is already showing in his first 7-8 games of his NBA career is remarkable. And he's going to have a big impact on this team going forward. And the final thing I want to discuss is a message to Luka Doncic. He's been on a little 30-point per game streak. I think he's averaging 36 points per game for this current NBA season. And all I'm saying, the Raptors, we kept Trae Young to 10 turnovers, or we pushed him to get 10 turnovers and stuff. We have a nasty little squad. I'm calling out Luka Doncic, saying that 30-point streak is ending tomorrow night. That's my take to end off this video. But let me know what you guys think about the Raptors win against the San Antonio Spurs and their future games coming up. How you're feeling about this season. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.